I tell you, boys, that I'm going to bring to you your news at 3 in detail. You got to stay tuned for that coming up right now. Aha.
Welcome to WEFM's 3 p.m. news. I am your presenter, Jessica Klein. First, on the local scene. A number of Vincentian writers and poets received prizes when the University of the West Indies Open Campus held their fourth annual Ellsworth Sheikh Keane and Nigel Thomas Fiction and Poetry Prize giving ceremony. Co-founder and sponsor of the competition, Professor Nigel Thomas, congratulated the writers whose pieces were selected and encouraged the other participants to continue to enhance and upgrade their craft. Thomas added that though St. Vincent and the Grenadines has a thriving oral tradition, there needs to be a sound literary presence. He expressed his gratitude for the number of submissions for the poetry category and commended the writers for their excellent work. The winners of the fiction and poetry category were awarded monetary prizes for their pieces at the award ceremony held at the University of the West Indies Open Campus Conference Room on Wednesday, November 23rd, 2022. The Barbados-based Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology, CIMH, is warning the region that recent heavy rains could continue into December and pose a risk for flooding during one of the most joyous seasons of the year. CIMH climatologist Cedric Van Meebach told the Caribbean Media Corporation, CMC, that this year flooding is a bigger risk in December than in other years. He said, I'm not saying it's going to flood in your area, but what I am saying is to keep checking the weather reports in your country to make sure that doesn't happen to you without you knowing about it. Speaking to the CMC at the Caribbean Climate Outlook Forum, Van Meebach cautioned that while Christmas is traditionally a period where people like to think joyous things and might not always pay attention to the weather as we normally would during the hurricane season, the globe is experiencing La Nina, a meteorological event where surface temperatures or ocean temperatures in the Pacific are cooler than usual. This in turn influences our weather patterns at the seasonal time scale. Still on the local scene, the option being considered for reform of the National Insurance Services NIS include phasing out the public service pension system, aligning retirement and pension age, capping the portion of one's salary that is paid as pension, and making NIS contributions mandatory for self-employed people. Stuart Haynes, executive director of the NIS, outlined the options to the media during a consultation in Kingstown on Tuesday. The consultation came amidst discussions about pension reform in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, with Haynes saying that reform must take place before 2024 if draconian changes are to be avoided. He said that, like Anguilla, the government could consider capping the replacement rate, the portion of a person's past earnings that they receive as a pension. Currently, some people could receive more than 120% of their past earnings as pension, since retired civil servants are entitled to both government and NIS pensions. Haynes said that any changes in this regard would only affect future services, as contributions already made would be locked in at the current replacement rates. In the region, in Jamaica, adults who are involved with the sexual exploitation of minors, including the possession of child pornography, could face up to 20 years in prison if proposed changes to the Cybercrimes Act 2015 are approved by legislators. The committee currently reviewing the act, which seeks to make it a criminal offense, had no objection with the recommendation put forward by Jamaica's Ministry of Education and Youth. Chief Technical Director in the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology, Joaquin Murray, in her report to the committee during its meeting in Parliament on Thursday, said the ministry recommended that under the Cybercrimes Act, Section 4, Adjustments should be made so that the penalties for an adult where the victim is a child are in accordance with the sanctions in Child Pornography Prevention Act. She noted that this legislation speaks generally to a fine because all the offenses in the legislation are triable in the circuit court, so there is broadly a fine that can be applied as determined by the court and terms of imprisonment ranging from 8 to 20 years. Still on the regional scene, a report by the United Nations agency published on Wednesday shows more than 5 women or girls were killed every hour in 2021 by someone in their own family. The study by the UN Office on Drugs and Crime and UN Women was issued before the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, observed each year on the 25th of November. Of the 81,000 women and girls intentionally killed last year, 45,000 died at the hands of an intimate partner or other family members. Meanwhile, 11% of all male homicides are perpetrated in the private sphere, revealing that home is not a safe place for many women and girls. Executive Director at UN Women, Seema Bohos, said the report is a horrific reminder that violence against women and girls is one of the most pervasive human rights violations worldwide. The figures show that the overall number of female homicides has remained largely unchanged over the past 10 years, highlighting the urgency for stronger action on prevention and response. And on the international scene, Malawi's anti-corruption agency says the country's vice president, Salos Chilima, has been arrested on allegations that he accepted money in exchange for government contracts. He is accused of receiving 280,000 from a British businessman and other items, according to a statement. Mr. Chilima has appeared in court but has not commented on the charges. He had already been stripped of his powers in June when he was first accused by the Anti-Corruption Bureau and now faces 6 charges relating to corruption. The British businessman, named as Zunet Sattar, accused of using connections with senior Malawi government officials and politicians to fraudulently obtain contracts to supply goods and services, was arrested in the UK in October last year and is now on bail. In reference to the Financial Times, the contracts are related to armored personnel carriers, food rations, and water cannons. This has been WEFM's 3 p.m. news. I have been your presenter, Jessica Klein. Join us again at 5:30 p.m. for WEFM's evening news, and we thank you for listening.
The more, the merrier this Christmas with Digicel. Get the all-new Logic L60